Since 2014, Yamaha's MT-07 has been one of the best-selling nakeds on the market,
selling 195,000 in Europe alone.
But for 2025, there's a whole new version. Unsurprisingly, Yamaha has decided to stick with its proven CP2 690cc motor, claiming 72 horsepower and 68 Nm of torque. For the first time ever, the MT gets an electronic YCCT throttle. Internally, the engine remains pretty much the same as what came before, but new intakes and funnels have added to the performance and the cleanliness of the motor, aided further by an improved lighter slip assist clutch. And if you want to make life even easier on yourself, you could opt for the new YMT auto gearbox option, which will set you back around 600 quid more and add 2 kilos to the mass. On face value, it might not look that too much has gone on with the frame of this bike, but it is a different proposition to the one you'll find on the last MT-07. So while it weighs the same, 14.8 kilos, it's around 12% stiffer, due to a load of work altering the stability, the rigidity of the package, fine-tuning it, I guess you could say. Adding to that a new pivot point for the swing arm, which is now longer for added stability. And you'll appreciate that Yamaha have really tried to make this bike more purposeful, more stable, more usable. Lighter triple clamps by around 500 grams also mean that there's less mass to the machine. And while I'm talking about weight saving, I should also mention the new spin forged wheels that save precious unsprung weight. Lots of features make this bike instantly distinguishable from the other generations of MT that have come before it. Not just those new LED headlights that mirror the MT-09, but another big giveaway are the upside down 41mm forks. They're joined at the rear by a new shock that includes preload and rebound adjustment. For improved ergonomics, Yamaha's also lowered the pegs by 10mm. They've kept the seat height the same at 805mm, but the handlebars now sit a little bit lower and further swept back towards the rider. And then there's the tech. So the MT-07 comes kitted with a 5-inch full-color TFT dash. It doesn't have an IMU, but thanks to the electronic controlled throttle, it means that YRC modes that allow you to opt between 3 different levels of throttle map are on the cards, plus variable traction control levels. All of that's controllable by the same switchgear you'll find on the MT-09, so it's a nice fancy new design, and it includes self-cancelling indicators because that's going to swing it for you. So that's the tech, now it's time to hit the road.
Needless to say, Yamaha needed to nail the brief with this bike here, and that's exactly what they've done. So I've ridden every single version of the MT-07 since they first came out, and I've never not had fun on them. They are just a fantastic bike to hoon around on, put a smile on your face. They're nice and easy to place where you want them. Actually, I should probably start by saying that this motor is not too dissimilar to the one that came out in the model 10 years ago. Yamaha claimed that by going down the ride-by-wire route, they managed to better the mapping and increase the mid-range torque that little bit more, but ultimately, you are dealing with that same CP2 motor. 68 Nm of torque, 72 brake horsepower. It ain't broke, they haven't fixed it. And I'd say that on my ride today, we've done 5 hours in the seat on the bike. That has been the hook to this machine. So the thing I like about the CP2 is that it's so versatile. It doesn't matter if you're tootling around in town, which we've done plenty of today, or absolutely cranking that throttle to the stop and giving it stick through all the twisties. It just delivers. And I think that because they've worked so hard with that mapping, never before has the engine been so accessible, so usable, so in your hand. The drive from the throttle to the rear wheel is just clinical, it's beautiful. I haven't had any issues with, I don't know, like a snatchy pickup or anything like that. It's been a real treat to kind of explore and exploit, I guess. So the character of the bike isn't just in how the engine delivers its performance, but in how it sounds, how it feels. It's a very tactile experience because of that motor. You get the vibrations through the bars, through the seats, not in an annoying way, just in a way that tells you that this bike is very much alive and keen to kind of get going and deliver, you know, excitement to you at the touch of that throttle. It's a lovely piece of kit to ride. And audibly, Yamaha's done something really quite cool with this. So we all know, without banging on about legislation and how strict it's got, so this is a Euro 5 Plus version of motorcycle, and the silencing of it is, I guess, one of the biggest challenges for manufacturers these days. What Yamaha's done is they've acoustically tuned the sound from this, more so for the rider than anyone else. When you're in this, there's some clever bits of metalwork that sit underneath the tank and kind of resonate in such a way that it gives you this deep, barky, torquey noise coming up at you as the rider without impacting everyone else around you. So that's a cool thing. But like I say, without needing that even, just when you are rinsing this thing, when you're running it all the way up the revs, it's just got this lovely bark to it. To say, like I say, that this is working with a standard silence system, it sounds fantastic, and that's part of the thrill. But the real hook to the engine is just the torque. So there are bikes much bigger than this with less drivability and just punch and zest when you go and crack that throttle wide open. I love how it punches. I love the fact that the power comes in nice and low as well. And with a little bit of clutch, in fact, you don't need a clutch to wheel it, but with a little bit of clutch, this thing will jump up in second, third, maybe even fourth gear. It's so playful, it's so dependable. The power on it is very linear as well. There's nothing spiky about the way the power comes through. It's just seamless, and when you're ready for more, hook another gear, ping that clutch again, and up it goes back up. Yeah, I had a lot of fun on this bike, if you didn't get the message already, and I think that, like I said, the engine is the best thing about it. The engine, that being said, isn't seamless. One thing I would say is that for 2025, there's a new slip assist clutch on the bike, but it didn't necessarily feel like it was the most functional of slipper clutches, essentially. So when I was riding this bike, you know, with a bit of energy, when I was changing down, say from third to second, high up in the revs, it wasn't uncommon that the rear wheel would give a bit of a squeak. It would give a little bit of a lockup. There's a lot of back torque coming from this motor delivered to that rear wheel, and that can upset the bike. That was something that I kind of, I don't know, to me, I guess it came across as character, but knowing that a lot of people buying this bike are going to be maybe less experienced, this is maybe going to be their first big naked. It's one of those things that can catch you out, especially if you are getting a lick on and, you know, suddenly you've got that rear wheel grabbing and upsetting the handling of the bike. But it's something that, yeah, I don't know, for me it just made me feel like the MT was that bit more alive and playful. But as far as the actual slip on tap, not all that great. But like I said, at the other end of things, when you're cracking on the throttle, the fueling, the mapping is fantastic. At this point I should probably go into the fact that for the majority of the day I was riding this bike in its most powerful delivery. So there are different riding modes, so sport being the most potent of them. Likewise, you get to choose your power between 1 and 3, 1 being the most acute from the throttle to the rear wheel. And that was my happy place. This is not an overwhelming bike. I think even compared to like an MT-09, which can get you in trouble quite quickly, I found that the power on this bike is just everything that you'd want to have without ever feeling like it's too much. That's how I interpret it anyway. So with it kind of lined up in its most fiery of characteristics, yeah, I had a lot of fun, but I never found that opening the gas on this thing was daunting or stuttery or awkward as it has been on previous versions of the MT-07. So that's a massive boost from Yamaha there. Another thing which I quite enjoyed was the fact that even with the traction control and gauge, will let you have a bit of a laugh, you know, pulling wheelies and stuff like that. If you want to do the big stuff, you've got to disengage the traction control, which is something that you have to do while static, going into like the settings menu and tweaking away at the vehicle configuration setup, but nice and easy to do. This bike isn't loaded with tech. It's not like a lot of sports bikes these days or super nakeds where you have to kind of have a PhD in tech to actually understand what is on the bike, let alone how to change it. The switch gears on this are the latest generation from Yamaha, so again, much the same as what you'd find on the MT-09. Nice and easy to use. They've got the 5-position joystick, as they call it. They've got the self-cancelling indicators, mode button, it is what it is. I should say at this point in time that what you don't get as standard on the manual, the conventional MT-07, is a shifter and a blipper, but you can get that. Yamaha have got that as an optional extra, and my experience today is that if I were going to go down this route, I'd actually invest in that package. One of the main reasons being that if I was to be critical of the engine, probably one of the most harsh areas is the gearbox itself. So Yamaha's worked hard on trying to make the tubes that bit more engaging and gear changes that bit more slick, but in fairness, it doesn't feel the nicest of gearboxes. With a blipper and a shifter, your life would be a hell of a lot easier. Another thing that's made this bike so enjoyable today is the handling. So it's nice and lightweight. It's a very manageable motorcycle. It's not got a massive wheelbase. That said, the geometry on it is relatively relaxed, so it's quite a stable motorcycle. And with this new swing arm and the front fork combination with a more braced, a stiffer, less flexing frame, the package has never felt more comfortable when you're cornering. It's very easy to throw into corners. I think the weight is nicely set on this bike, but the geometry is also fantastically well balanced. And yeah, it's a nice bike to kind of get into a corner, feel planted in a bend, you know, and then crank that throttle and fire yourself out of there. There's good mechanical grip on tap all the time, but like I say, in terms of stability, the MT-07 has never felt more plush, more refined, more comfortable, more capable. It's so much more telling than it has been before. I remember on the last version of the MT-07 on the launch, being surprised that the front end felt good. The rear shock on it felt just massively underdamped. That is not the case now. They've really worked hard on refining the handling characteristics, and they've given it the units that this bike needs. It's genuinely surprising just how good this thing is in a bend. Some of the roads we were riding were absolutely littered in lumps and bumps, and constantly undulating. It was a good workout for any bike, but you know, I never once felt that the MT-07 was out of its depth or that I was in any trouble. What makes this bike nice and easy to pitch around as well are the bars. So they're nice and wide. They're actually a little bit wider for 2025. They sit a little bit lower, a little bit closer to you, the rider. It's all kind of added together to give this bike's handling characteristics a massive boost. Like I said, even if you're riding a third generation MT-07, get on one of these and you'll note the difference. Huge step forwards. Technologically, like I said, there's loads more features to this bike than there have been before, but it's not overwhelmed with technology and features. Yes, you can connect it to your phone, you can see maps, etc. on the dash, but it's not littered with expensive features that would have meant that the base model price would have gone sky high. Yamaha have given you what you need above all else, and there's nothing wrong with that. At the heart of this thing is a new 5-inch full color dash that's easy on the eye. You can clearly see what gear you're in, what revs you're at. You know, there's a few different menus as well, so if you want to alter the look of it, you can do that. Or even, you know, sometimes today I was riding, staring at, you know, a map of the route we're tracking connected to my phone, and yeah, there was no issues with that whatsoever. And I could still see all the other details around there as well, such as trip, such as, you know, again, speed and revs and all that kind of stuff. So great dash, very sophisticated, and it's surprising that something that good is on a bike that's this affordable. Without naming and shaming, there are loads of other bikes on the market with much lesser sophisticated or easy on the eye dashes than the one you'll find on the MT-07, despite the fact that this machine is priced, you know, thousands of pounds less than what they are. So good job, Yamaha. I like that. The whole bike I like the ergonomics as well. So, you know, we had the best part of 5 hours riding today. Felt relaxed and comfortable, you know, the whole time. Like I said, the bar position has changed. The pegs are a little bit lower as well. The seat height has remained the same, but the whole time through, I've found the bike very accommodating, very easy to kind of clock big distance on without feeling uncomfortable or wishing, you know, I had a bit more leg room or that the bars were closer or whatever. What I did pick up on is that the seat is really quite firm. I'm not quite talking plank of wood, but it's not a million miles off. It is a bit firm, so if you're a bit of a princess in that respect, I believe Yamaha has a more comfort inclined option in their extras, so look into that. If I had one, I probably would. The thing is with this bike, you know, here I am talking about, you know, going the distance on it. It could be bought by someone who wants to commute on it. It could equally be bought by someone who just wants to go and rinse the hell out of it on a weekend, you know, and have a right laugh or go pull wheelies down an airfield or whatever. It is a fantastically versatile motorcycle. And like I said, I've had so much fun on it. I've really enjoyed all that it's had to offer. And, you know, for me, I'm looking forward to getting back home and doing more miles on one in the UK. These bikes are in dealerships now. One last thing to point out is that there is a YAMT, an auto version. It's going to cost a few £100 more than the base model, the equivalent almost to spending on the optional quick shifter and blipper. But if you are one of those people that would maybe feel more comfortable, especially if you're coming up from a big scooter or something like that, with an auto system, the YAMT system is the bike for you. So check that out. Like I said, I think it's about 300 quid more. But other than that, you know, there's not a lot of, I think it's 2.5 kilos heavier or something like that. Other than that, the bikes are nigh on identical. Aside from on the AMT version, you do get cruise control as well. It's a bit more techy, that's what it is. But the base of this bike is the same on both models, and you know, having ridden them both, I've enjoyed what they've got to offer. It's out there now, get yourself along, even if you've been riding bikes for years and years and years. If you're wanting something that is playful, yet sophisticated and capable of going the distance, what's the point, in a naked guise, this bike might just well surprise you. Experienced, inexperienced, it doesn't matter. This is a great package, and I for one can't wait to do more miles on them.